After launching SonicWall CSE, the next step is to configure CSE to utilize the full security capabilities, including cloud management integration and user device enrollment. Before configuring CSE, determine its deployment model. You can either integrate CSE with your SonicWall firewall or configure it independently. In most cases, you can use either or both deployment models. If you choose to integrate it with a firewall, set up a CSE connector through a SonicWall firewall. This dialogue connector is supported on Sonic OS 7.1.2 or higher and Network Security Manager 2.5 or higher, and it accomplishes various functions. It establishes a secure tunnel with the SonicWall CSE Global Edge network. The CSE connector on the firewall enables secure remote access to private internal resources behind the firewall. The firewall is only required to connect outbound to the internet and does not need any inbound open ports. When CSE is integrated with the firewall, you can view its status on the Network Cloud Secure Edge status page of the firewall. You can also deploy CSE independently. In this scenario, use either Global Edge or self-hosted Private Edge to access private resources. Organizations who want to own the data plane can opt for the self-hosted Private Edge deployment model, but this will increase many upgrades and management costs. An organization can deploy using SonicWall Managed Global Edge, which reduces costs, minimizes latency, and simplifies setup. When selecting Global Edge, you can configure connectors through the CSE Command Center. Note that CSE utilizes Global Edge even when integrated with a SonicWall firewall, but its configuration is then managed through the firewall. The Global Edge deployment model uses an outbound connector inside the organization's private network to connect to SonicWall managed access tiers. If you deploy self-hosted Private Edge, the next step is to create self-managed access tiers on private servers to route traffic to internal resources. Notice that the screen displays the SonicWall created access tiers that are connected to by the Global Edge network connector. For the self-hosted Private Edge model, you need to create your own access tiers on your organization's private servers, allowing device traffic to private resources to route through servers that the organization owns and manages. Managing users is crucial for CSE functionality. Options include the following: on-prem user setup. If no identity provider is available, you can manually add users and groups through the directory, users page, or configure an on-premises LDAP server. Select IDP integration. If your IDP is already available, you can enable and configure end-user authentication through your identity provider in the Settings, Identity, and Access page. This streamlined version removes redundancy while maintaining clarity and logical progression. Note that when manually adding a user, the user will receive an email with instructions on how to use CSE services. CSE can integrate with your identity provider so your end users can be authenticated using Enterprise Single Sign-On. Note that CSE supports the following identity providers: Okta, Microsoft Entra ID, formerly Azure AD, G Suite, and other SAML IDPs. In the next step, you are required to configure trust factors. Note that trust factors are used to calculate trust scores, which are used within CSE policies to determine the minimum required trust level for access to CSE protected services. The Trust Profiles page is displayed on the screen. Here you can configure a trust profile to check the device's security posture. This allows you to assign a set of trust factors with designated trust effects to user groups, device serial numbers, operating systems, and device ownership types. Next, you will need to define roles. CSE role is an admin-defined set of users and devices that are used to determine who can access specific resources. The next step is to create a role. CSE role can be defined based on user attributes, device attributes, or service accounts. Users and devices that match the defined attributes will automatically take on the specified role. Next, configure the CSE Zero Trust Network Access Policies. To configure ZTNA, you need to configure an access policy that enforces which users have access to protected services. Access policies are defined by what role can access a service, the required trust level, and additional configurations. There are 3 policy types: tunnel, web, and infrastructure. When you configure access policies, you can granularly define and assign access to your private resources. This is done by creating tunnels, hosted websites, or infrastructure services. Service tunnels offers built-in continuous authorization functionality. Creating a service tunnel ensures users are authorized each time they attempt to access the protected resources from an IP. Note that CSE uses OpenID Connect authentication flows to provide end-user secure zero-trust access to websites via web browsers. Infrastructure services enables one-click, secure access to development and production environments. Note that if you have an Internet Access License, you can configure Internet Threat Protection policies. You can create and manage Internet Threat Protection policies to block malicious content. This includes configuring content filtering, app filtering, and threat protection in the policy, and then assign them to users and devices via roles, like other protected services in Cloud Secure Edge.